Hey guys, you're in the machine. Hamstrings, commonly injured muscle group because of a lack of range of motion, which is a product of incomplete stretching. There are actually 3 muscles that make up the hamstrings, and if you don't get to them all, you're doing an incomplete stretch. It has a lot to do with the angle of the hips and the positioning of the thigh bones, and we're gonna do it now. Okay, most important in trying to stretch this hamstrings group is to be warm before you get started. I'm just showing the stretches today. There are lots of different ways to get warm. Do one of my flows, do someone else's flow, jog around the block, whatever it takes to get that tissue viscosity down so the range of motion is a little more open for you. Remember, a little anatomy lesson. There are 3 parts to the hamstrings group. The inside portion is called the semimembranosus. The middle portion is called the semitendinosus, and the outside, that big thick rope that you feel when you do like a hamstring curl, is the biceps femoris. Looks like this. Okay, now that you have a PhD in physiology, let's do some stretching. The inside portion, the semimembranosus, is hard to get to. All of these stretches have to do with the angle of the hips and the femur. So here's how it starts. We're gonna pigeon our toes really far in, not like all the way in so there's a kink in our hips, but if you imagine you're parallel, turn them in like at least a 45. From here, tuck the tailbone away, not under, and lean forward. You should start to feel a little bit of a stretch on the inside because of the angle of those thigh bones. Next, we want to lift one leg to stretch the other hamstring. If you can reach the ground and do this, great. If you need blocks for this, just as good. But I want to keep my hips level, drop my chest, and start to lift that leg. Remember, both thigh bones are internally rotated, pigeon-toed, and I'm keeping my hips square, not letting it open. That'll start to stretch the adductor. That's a totally different exercise. Dropping the chest, lifting one leg to stretch that inside hamstrings portion on the planted leg. If you're not feeling it, back out, pigeon toe more, fold forward with a flat back and find that tension on the inside, and then nice and slow lift. It doesn't matter how high your leg goes. Drop the chest, lift the leg, and of course, make sure you get both sides. Pigeon toes, square hips, chest down, reach the standing leg. If the hip opens, it's going to alleviate the stretch, so turn it down, even if that means your leg doesn't go as high. That's the inside. That's a great way to get the semimembranosus. Next is the semitendinosus. Very easy stretch. This is the one you're probably already doing. I want to stand with my feet exactly parallel and exactly hip width. Nothing's going to move with my femur bones. Nothing's going to move with my hips. I'm going to be completely square in my stance with a forward fold. Really easy to do. Hinging at the hips, try to keep the back flat. When it can't go anymore with a flat back, just relax it around and then grab anything and pull. If you're open, that might be your toes. If you're a little tight, you can always use a strap. Hinge forward with a flat back until you can't go anymore, and then round and pull. And make sure you're experiencing the sensation in the middle of the hamstrings. The outside, a little trickier to get. That's the big one. That's the biceps femoris. So let's just start with the left side. We're going to take the right foot, step it behind, like we're lining up our pinky toes. That means the left knee has to bend. We're going to push that leg into the right leg to straighten it. It'll almost feel like you're hyperextending your leg. Forward fold and reach over to the left. The right foot will be there because we're crossed, so don't get all twisted. But you're reaching to the left to push out out and get the outside of that right hamstring. Pushing back. Notice how I'm driving my hips a little bit to the right. If I need the blocks, that's fine. But the straight leg is the one being stretched. The bent leg, the left, is forward. Push out. If you want to add to it, you can turn a little bit back with like a twist of the body. That really sets some tension. And again, if you're not that low, use anything you have to push back, but you should feel it more toward the outside of this hamstring. Of course, we always do both sides. So we'll put the right foot forward, step the left behind, line up the pinky toes, push back with the right. So the left leg is straight, almost like hyperextended, and then reach over to the right. So we're reaching right, but stretching the left because our legs are crossed. If you need the blocks, cool. If you don't, reach the ground and then push back like you're driving your hips that direction. Remember to breathe. Do this as long as you want. If you're up on blocks, cool. If you want to add to it, twist a little bit like you're looking back toward the back of your mat or the back of the room. When you've had enough, back it out nice and slow. Really quick, we're going to do a couple seated ones, and guess what? All this is the rotation of the thigh. So let's have a seat. We'll start with the right side, right foot out. It's this easy. Those we just did were a little bit complex, really targeting the exact spot for a deeper stretch. This is a little bit easier. If I want the inside stretch, I'm going to set my heel just a little farther out from this regular single leg forward fold, and I'm going to turn the thigh bone in like I'm pointing my toe to the ground, and then I'm going to reach for it. It should target that inside. Again, not completely a cakewalk to separate these muscles because they work as a group, but if you position your thigh in the right spot and lean properly, you can find that stretch. Guess what? How do we get the middle? No problem. Bring the heel in a little bit, straighten the leg right up and down, just like we do in a normal single leg forward fold, and reach. All the mechanics we would use in forward folding. Peeling the toe back, get a little calf stretch in the meantime. And now I bring the heel in just a little bit, and I externally rotate that thigh bone, and forward fold. In fact, when I'm warm enough, I can kind of travel my way through them. Outside, inside, middle, inside, all the way. Let's try the other side. Heel out just a little bit. Rotate the toe toward the mat. Internal rotation of the thigh bone. Forward fold. Find something and pull, even if you're tight, and that's a strap. Nobody cares. Bring it back to the middle, perfectly square. Forward fold with a flat back. Round when you have to. Find something to pull. And for the outside side, biceps femoris, we'll bring the heel in just a little bit. Externally rotate the thigh bone. Same thing, reach forward. And there you have it, hamstring stretching. Remember, there's 3 parts. It has to do with the angle of your hips and how you turn your thigh bone in or out. You gotta stretch if you want to be flexible. Do it.
But the whole point of the machine is to relieve you of that suffering.